Wow, John Doyle. Shop.com is coming back. Merchandise is coming back. Thank you, Donald Trump, USA, USA, once again. Wow, John Doyle. Shop.com is coming back. Merchandise is coming back. Thank you, Donald Trump, USA, USA, USA. Wow, John Doyle. Shop.com is coming back. Merchandise is coming back. Thank you, Donald Trump, USA, USA, USA.
All right. So we won the election, success, coalition, success. Now is the less fun part where we, of course, get to fight each other. Maybe that's more fun. Who stays on the island? If you thought that everything after November was just going to be roses and daisies, things that aren't responsible to elaborate on, you just misunderstood the project. Like, winning is difficult. Governing is even more difficult. Almost makes you sympathize with the black pillar, right? It's an easier state of being, just coping all the time. So these fights are going to take place, and some people are trying to use this as finally proof that Trump betrayed us, which is not true. Because, of course, this started when Trump appointed Krishnan to be a senior advisor on artificial intelligence, which, by the way, is not anything that has any bearing on immigration policy. That position in particular, I understand AI is connected. Unlike someone like Stephen Miller, who is, deputy chief of staff for policy, particularly focused on immigration, who is as good on immigration as it gets. And so it's not the end of the world, but this Krishnan guy was born in India, came to America by way of L1 visa in 2007, working for Microsoft. People were just like pouring fuel on the fire by claiming that he was a Kamala supporter. Turns out that's not true. He was just like some other Indian guy. The problem is this guy has advocated heavily for raising country caps on green cards. Presumably that also would mean the H-1B visa program. So patriots caught wind of this and understandably were not happy about it. And so Trump appointed this guy on December 23rd. But then on Christmas Day, while we were celebrating the birth of Christ, Vivek Ramaswamy, our old friend, launched a probing attack on one of the patriot core issues, which is legal immigration, more specifically the H-1B visa program. Naturally drew the ire of patriots, because even on Christmas, we have to be ready for a fight, right? It's literally American culture. You'd expect them to know this. But this backlash caused Vivek Ramaswamy and other tech bros to come out not only in defense of Krishnan, but also the whole H-1B visa system, which we'll get into in a bit. And this led to an argument where Vivek essentially called Americans a bunch of jocks who have never worked hard, who had girlfriends in high school, and because of that, we're all lazy people who look up to characters from Boy Meets World instead of math Olympians like Vivek, and therefore, we must import Indian and Chinese workers to show us how the world works. Now, while of course this reminded me of how I myself have never played sports, interacted with women, let alone dated one, and I never really worked hard at anything ever at any point in my life, what it really reminded me of, which is far more important than all of that, was my old debate with Vivek on this broader issue, my old beef with Vivek on the TL, what seems like a lifetime ago now, and which I would like to revisit here now that this is progressing, because we have to solve it, we have to win. Because you notice that nobody can actually explain, especially if they're trying to make it in American politics, more especially conservative American politics. Nobody can ever explain why Americans should not be put first in their own country, why they should just yield ownership of that country to people not like themselves. To any other country in the world at any point in time, that would be considered absurd, insulting actually. So that's my contention, nothing more, nothing less. Anything other than that, like my stated position, is just the attempt of opposition to muddy the waters of the discussion and avoid having to explain that very simple and obvious implication, which is that by disagreeing with our position, calling us racist or whatever, they're saying Americans should not be put first in their own country. And in fact, it's not even their country. It's just sort of like this place that you can go to if you believe enough in this vague concept of America. Okay, so as it concerns Ramaswamy, I got into this back and forth with him on Twitter a few years ago, and then I used that to cause a little bit of ruckus for his presidential campaign because people started catching wind that, wait a minute, I don't think this guy is America first as he claims to be. And so I posted the screenshots of his replies to me, and then a bunch of people saw it. He had to come out and make this clarifying statement, but apparently he hasn't really changed his position in the midst of the recent controversy, even all these years later. And so I would like to go through it all again with you, very fine viewer, but to set the parameters beforehand, the last 10 years of American politics have been leading up to this debate, which broadly speaking is what is America, whom is America for, and that may not seem like anything particularly groundbreaking, but for the past several decades, the answer to that question has been everything and everyone but Americans themselves who've had to be passengers to their own destinies. And even in George Bush's inaugural address, this was made clear, as we will soon discuss and go over, and it wasn't until Donald Trump that we've really had an opportunity to do anything about it, and we have to do it, and we have to win, because it's unavoidable. I mean, either we get put back into the box and we lose our country, or we change something and actually work towards restoring the sovereignty of the American people. One side is going to win. Something is going to happen. And if we're right, if we win, we can still have immigration. It just has to be in service of the American people. If they're right and they win, then all of this just continues. There is no American people. It's all just words on paper. Line go up. Nothing means anything. Anything goes. And I don't like that. So generally speaking, I'll start by saying I think it's a positive development. We're having this debate. We're winning this debate. That would not have been possible before Donald Trump in this era of politics, which began because of Donald Trump. And in previous eras, basically up until like 2017, you would be fired and canceled and blacklisted for expressing any skepticism, not just opposition, skepticism about the immigration consensus, as we will address in our much anticipated History of Conservative Cancel Culture video. But for now, this is a tale about immigration, the most important issue, as we will discuss. And I warn you, because I care about you, this is the issue, believe it or not, of everything I've said over the years that I've been doing this that makes people the most upset. So watch until the end. Let me know what you think in the comments. I'm the one who's open to discussion, okay? I'm the Anglo-Saxon here, and everyone else just tells me to shut up, and they want to cancel me, ruin my life. But Vivek himself, for what it's worth, says he wants to have the debate. So I believe him. So here I am, concisely going on the record with my position. He says, let's flush it out. I agree. Let's flush it out. I know it's trendy to go after this guy, but I'll have you know, like with everything, I was ahead of the curve on this one. I've been butting heads with this guy since this time in 2023. January 2023, but I come in peace. I don't hold grudges. I don't do drama. I engage in good faith so long as that is reciprocated. But it's my position that this cannot be compromised on. And my unwillingness to compromise on this issue, I think, says a lot less than me than his unwillingness to compromise on it says about him, if that is indeed the case. So we'll see. I want to put Americans first. I don't want America First 2.0 if it's going to shy away from the immigration issue, because immigration is all that matters. It's the only argument. Everything else is downstream from that. Ethnic diversity lowers social trust. Social trust is a predictor of everything that you enjoy and understand about living in Western countries. So immigration affects literally everything. Fertility rates, no one talks about this one. People have children when they feel as though they have a future in their society. Americans are looking outside right now, and they're not exactly getting that vibe. I don't blame them. Trust levels, crime, the economy, literally the entire society. Let's save some time. Wow. My face when society and everything about it is affected by the people who comprise it. That's so freaking epic. So yeah, if this isn't fixed, say goodbye to the economy. I mean, that's gone. That goes without saying. And even if, say, your economy doesn't suck, which it will, but let's say it doesn't, your whole country's gone anyway. So like, what is even the point? It's not yours anymore. You don't recognize it. What even is it? Countries cannot survive demographic change. Russia, China, these places in just the last century have survived world wars, communist genocides, famines, economic collapses, degeneration. But at the end of the day, they still look like Russia and China. Maybe not your cup of tea, but at least recognizable to their eldest generations, to their inhabitants. And no one ever refutes this, by the way. People just ignore it because it makes them uncomfortable. It's a lot easier. You get a lot more attention. You can make a lot more money telling people that we need to fix issues like X or Y, whatever. Everyone thinks that they're just like, they're so edgy and based, focusing on these issues that make women and gay people and atheists mad. There's a time and a place for that. Don't get me wrong. I'll be the first one there. But you notice that these people never speak honestly about immigration, because when you start talking about things that aren't liberal, that aren't blank slate, tabula rasa, things that are real, and you don't just get to decide, things like your nationality, your ethnicity, your race, etc., well, then people start to get the knives out very quickly. Now things are real. The stakes are a bit higher, and that's very simply because you can disagree on any issue, because at the end of the day, there's a possibility of reconciliation. I mean, that's implied. Like, one day I'll get you. I'll convince you. Immigration does not do this. If you and I disagree on immigration, that means like one of us probably isn't supposed to be here, right? Try changing someone's mind about that. It is the foundational issue because it affects the participation in the political processes for every other issue that you may be concerned about. And so naturally, it's a sensitive issue. And so naturally, people get really upset if you speak about it honestly. They're like, why are you ruining our gay little party where we kiss each other? You're like killing the vibe of our gay little party where we kiss each other on the mouth. Yeah, well, I'm not here to make friends and kiss boys on the mouth, okay? I am here to speak the truth. Nobody ever addresses it. They either ignore it completely or they dismiss it by recycling some like ad hominem nonsense, trying to infer some motive like, okay, Let's ignore the idea and instead focus on the idea behind the idea, which is racism. Now I don't actually have to address a single thing you said and I feel better about myself, and now you're in trouble. Or they address it briefly with some platitude like, well, actually, the only thing that matters is identity and values. There are plenty of white liberals who don't like America. Why don't you go join them since you have more in common with them, since you believe in identity politics? I feel very good about myself. I'm so smart. I'm such a smart boy. Yeah, you think I haven't thought of that? You think I haven't heard that 1,000 times every year for my entire life, you stupid idiot. You give the benefit of the doubt to people who don't even speak your language. Well, they probably love America just as much as I do, and in the same way that I do, but you won't give me, the guy who agrees with all of your heroes, by the way, the benefit of the doubt that I've maybe considered that if everyone would just agree, then there'd be no issue. People like that because it ends their responsibility to think. They say, oh, well, okay. But they have to subscribe to our values and we have to make sure they assimilate. And then they turn the thinking cap off. I'm over. It's done for the day. Okay, sounds good. Now back to weed, back to porn, back to being the worst person ever. They say that like immigration is just like some like new thing that we're proposing. We want to make sure we do it properly, as opposed to something that we've tried and failed to do while being guided by that idea that assimilation is possible, that they love our values. And we've been doing that for the past 60 years. They act like that's not the case. And it's not every single one of these people, but it is the law of averages. We know what tends to happen, and we make our laws based on tendency. Like, you want to talk about why the left has become so crazy in the past 30 years? Well, what enabled them to do that? What granted them permission? They are free to become more left-wing because they have that reliable voter base which they've imported. They no longer have to appeal to the judgment and sensibilities of normal white Americans to win elections. And it's been allowed to happen because you've been eased by the idea that, well, there's nothing to worry about. The experts are handling assimilation, and that is definitely happening. But it's not being enforced. It's not happening at all, actually. I don't even think it's possible to happen in the first place, again, in general. But it's not even a legitimate debate. Like, they're just afraid of being called racist. That's all there is to it. And I know that I'm right because nobody can hear my argument fully, repeat it back to me in their own language to demonstrate comprehension, and then explain to me where I misstepped, why I'm incorrect. And I wish I were incorrect. That would make me feel so much better. But instead, I'm just called names, okay? Repeat your talking points. Repeat your little bumper sticker talking points. America's an idea. America's an idea. During World War II, which we will discuss in detail at a later time, we now understand that to be this grand moral crusade. Yeah, let's go get them. Let's go save the world. Get the bad guys. No, there were actually significant recruitment issues during World War II because nobody wanted to go die for an idea. Go back, look at the polling on whether Americans wanted to get involved in the war. They overwhelmingly did not because it did not concern us. They weren't compelled by the idea. They needed it to be something real, like an attack on the homeland, not just like this attack on an idea, like, oh, the bad guys are doing bad stuff. Let's go get them. So the Allies had to, during a time of mass unemployment, have a draft because something like 75% of those who fought for democracy literally had to be forced to do it. So, hey, it was worth it, right? I guess. Remember that video of the veteran breaking down crying because his country isn't what he fought for? He doesn't recognize it anymore? Yeah. The point being, if you reject the historical understanding of what it means to be an American, you reject the men who sacrificed and bled for this country, which happens to be the men who established and built this country, men like that veteran. You spit in their faces. Thanks. We'll take it from here. Appreciate you. Appreciate you doing all the work. But now we can come in and really get this thing going right. Yeah, you're no different than the rest of us. Don't worry. How nice of you. Thank you. Yes. If that makes you an American, that's only by the modern standard. But really, who cares what that means? It's like believing you're a woman by the modern standard. Like, you wear the word like a costume. But the real meaning, the reason you'd want to wear it in the first place, that's gone. It's just a costume. It's an impersonation, a caricature, a crude imitation. I'm not American by the modern definition. Like, what evidence would suggest that I am? My government doesn't represent me. My political leaders don't represent me. My military doesn't fight for me. I don't hear any of my values discussed at any point in popular media. See them platformed unless in mockery or disavowal. My laws largely go against my interests. All the people near the levers of power who occupy institutions, they certainly would condemn me or my views, disavow me. So by any measure, I'm alien in a country that was built by my ancestors. Everything is completely foreign to me. Nothing seems to acknowledge me except in contempt. So, okay, you're the real American. Fine. Look around. Examine your prize. But to be an American in the sense that actually matters, which is why you use the word American in the first place, to invoke that value, to invoke that power and that feeling, I win. The country agrees with you now. Your attitudes are popular. You've got the muscle behind you for the time being. Okay, good for you. I'm an old stock American. And ironically, if I could teleport back to the country that existed when people thought like me, when everything wasn't completely alien to me, guess what? You would want to come with me. You need us. We don't need you. We just want to be left alone. The recent immigrant attack in Germany on Christmas, perfect example of this. The guy was a doctor. not exactly socioeconomic factors. He wasn't Muslim, so not exactly an issue of religious fanaticism. He was legally in Germany, so not exactly an issue of illegal immigration. No, he was vetted, so what's the problem? What's the issue? Something deeper, something beyond our comprehension, something that can't be solved by checking boxes and filling out paperwork, something which we used to know but have since forgotten. The 9/11 hijackers, here legally. The grooming gang organizers in the UK, legally. So the distinction doesn't really hold the weight that people are comfortable claiming that it does, legal versus illegal. This is the kind of natural state of the world, right? It's depraved, it's violent, it's amoral. We have a nice society because we did a lot. We did a lot of bad shit to isolate ourselves from that. I don't care who didn't. But think about the average American versus the average global citizen. Imagine if you like GTA 5 switched to a random global citizen. Imagine what they would be doing. Imagine what they'd be eating, where they'd be living, using the bathroom. Whereas if you switch to the like random American middle-class taxpayer, you may interrupt something goofy or mundane, otherwise pleasant, at least civilized. And that's not an accident. America is the best because American people are the best. We are not a charity. We are a private, gated community. It's a big exclusive club, and it's great precisely because of that. We don't really need any help. We built everything. I'm sure we'll be okay. Oh, but we have to have merit. We need merit-based immigration. We have to have merit. Okay, stay with me, baby birds. Merit-based immigration is a lie. It's not a real thing. It sometimes is, but like every other popular belief, it's meant to exploit you. And we're going to talk about that next. We've got a whole separate video debunking the scam of merit-based immigration, title pending, work in progress, because it deserves its own discussion. But for your appetizer, just think about the policies proposed by these supposed lovers of merit, where anyone who can basically prove that they're a net economic benefit and who can pass some form of civics test will be able to obtain a visa. There are probably like 1 billion people in the world who can meet that requirement, let alone you're going to trust this government to enforce that. Plus, it's all just BS credentialism. You can't prove any of it. Oh, this guy has a piece of paper from this country, and he says also he knows how many senators each state in America gets. Boom, welcome to America, Jack. Bid HUD. They all overwhelmingly vote Democrat too. So obviously they're going to destroy your economy anyway. So even if you gaslight yourself into believing that your standard of living is actually better now than your grandfather's was because the line went up, well, that line's not going to go up for much longer. Also, we know from the data that the increase in the GDP doesn't even go to Americans. Like 98% of it goes to the new Americans. So housing is more expensive. Cities become more crowded, less clean. GDP line goes up though. Cry about it. Okay, who cares? Who cares? Which country do you want to live in? America in 1960 or America in 2024? Because the GDP back then was pennies on the dollar compared to what it is now. But for some reason, it's harder now for Americans to achieve the lifestyle that their grandparents enjoyed. Funny how that works. You know, if you take Econ 101, you learn GDP is not a direct measure of the quality of life. It's a measure of dollars moving around. More people, more dollars. Crazy. So it's dishonest to disenfranchise normal Americans by talking about, oh, we need immigrants. It's literally illegal to be successful right now in America today. The economy is suffocated by DEI regulation, climate regulation, feminism, affirmative action, cultural programming from infancy. Okay, we get a bit stagnant, and then we're told, you know what? We need people who have merit. Unlike you, because you're an idiot. We need the merit people to come bail us out. Give me a break. You've never competed with us. Repeal the Civil Rights Act. Let's see who gets off the blocks first. It's crazy how all the people with the most merit are coming from countries that look a bit merit-starved, we'll say, right? You think the countries would look a little bit different. What kind of luck is that when all the people who have the most merit are coming from those countries? Our ideas are publicly available. I mean, C-SPAN's accessible worldwide. Just take our ideas. Go right ahead, please. It's almost debasing, though, I will say, to even engage with this line of argument, because everyone who has any knowledge of American and European immigration systems understands that they exist as a way to allow for these immigrants to establish these like ethnic beachheads for themselves to facilitate chain migration, citizenship, wealth, and political power at the expense of normal Americans. Mexicans, Filipinos, Chinese, Indians, all of these groups bring about 6 more people with them on average. So for every 1 we take in, we really get 7. How fortunate for us. What a bargain. And it's been several decades, but it'll kick in momentarily. It's going to be like the Quaaludes in Wolf of Wall Street. We won't even know what hit us. When the merit finally kicks in after decades, sleeper cell merit, it's going to be like the 1920s all over again. You won't even understand the prosperity and the merit. Just kidding, get pranked. All of them vote Democrat. I don't know. How can you say they're assimilated, are assimilating, are going anywhere close to assimilation? Like if they overwhelmingly express their political ambitions on the revolutionary side of things, the side which does not seek to conserve, but change. I'm not saying there aren't good people here, but for every one of them who are closer to what you're describing, there seem to be a lot more who are closer to what I'm describing. It's just the law of averages. Everybody is conservative about what they know best. So, of course, people who are completely alien to our civilization have no desire to conserve it. They want to change it to something more familiar to them. Who can fault them for that? And that's why people get so mad about this, because even if you believe that the reason Democrats get the immigrant vote is because Republicans are anti-immigrant, which isn't true, because if that were true, we would not still be dealing with this issue in 2025. It would have been solved by now. But even if it were true, doesn't that kind of like prove the point anyway? Like at the end of the day, these people are single issue voters. And if you oppose the importation of their co-ethnics, you're their enemy and they're going to express that politically. They could agree with your values, natural conservatives, deeply religious. But if you take the stance of saying, hey, maybe American immigration policy should please maybe prioritize the American people, they will set all of that aside and vote against you just to spite you. Apparently, that's what the numbers show. I'm just a guy who likes numbers. It's not that I don't want America to be competitive. Of course I want America to be competitive. I want America to be so competitive on the world stage that we take in just as many Indians, high-skilled immigrants, I should say, as the Chinese. Because apparently Americans are just lazy idiots who want to coast off the achievements of their literal family. But then the millions of people who pour into this country with fake credentials, just wait until we talk about the ethnic cheating mafias, by the way. Hold off on that. And then these people come in and they tell you, well, actually, the German rocket scientists who took Old Glory to the moon were immigrants, so really this is all the same. Don't make me keck. Don't make me keck out loud. What I'd like for you, Patriot, to understand is that every great man of history was intimately acquainted with where his family was from whom he was descended. You need to be as well, because it will change how you see everything. It will change your experience with the world. As such, now is not the time to debase ourselves by addressing this whole disingenuous merit-based immigration argument. That comes later. For now, we will simply enrich ourselves by revisiting a Twitter argument I got into 2 years ago. But first, I know that Christmas is over, but now that President Trump is President Trump again, you should know that it is legal to spend money. And when it comes to getting gear that can handle anything, there is no better choice than UnderTac, designed for and tested by an elite special forces team in Africa's harshest conditions. Think about that for a second. UnderTac is made to perform and be cool and comfortable, whether you're navigating through tough terrain, you're just tackling your day-to-day. Their underwear, their socks, shirts, keeps you dry, comfortable, mission ready, made from premium materials like modal, 50% more moisture wicking than cotton, by the way. Cotton cells seething, once again, by the way. UnderTac offers tactical performance that goes beyond the basics. From the ultra-comfortable boxer briefs to the American-made battle weave merino socks, you will feel the difference. And don't forget the hoodie, the EDC t-shirts, rugged enough for anything, yet comfortable enough for every day. Go to undertac.com. That's undertac.com. Use Doyle20 for 20% off site-wide. Whether you're gearing up for an adventure, everyday life, that can be an adventure. You can trust UnderTac. You can trust me. We've got your back. Plus, a portion of the profits go to veteran-run organizations which are fighting human trafficking, we support that fight. So go to undertac.com, 20% off site-wide, code Doyle20 for 20% off site-wide today. Very epic. We continue. We got to wind the clocks back to January 2023 because I am a well-adjusted person who can let things go. You have to remember at the time, this was before this guy had launched his campaign for president. Nobody really knew who he was unless you're perusing Fox Business, reading books about how to combat the woke. So anyway, I forgot exactly what triggered this. Quite often, I just say things and they get me into trouble, and then I say further things, or it's kind of like a chicken versus egg, I suppose. So anyway, I just tweet out for whatever reason one day. I said, just because you have a piece of paper saying that you're an American doesn't mean that you have equal claim to this country as those who can trace their ancestry on this land back to the government, back to before the government that gave you that paper. And some people, I think what made this blow up is some people heard that and thought that I was making a case for like Indians, which I was not, which is sort of funny when you think about it, because it's like, hey man, our ancestry is deeper than the establishment of this government. And they're like, so true, white man. I'm like, no, not you, not specifically when we do it. But I did not refuse to elaborate. I indulged them. I said, not claiming, because look, I'm a reasonable guy, okay? I said, not claiming to know where the line is or where the line is drawn or what the solution is. But regardless, this is obviously true and we should talk about it. It's also very difficult to be patient with those who don't respect this or who even are offended by it. For example, my roots are in Michigan. Wouldn't necessarily argue it's the best or coolest place for them to be, but that's where they are, which is all that matters. They extend to 3 ancestors who were in the founding convoy of Detroit alongside Cadillac in 1701 to, ironically, a man who is the reason that every Cadillac you've ever seen on the road looks the way it does. Presently, a woman named Rashida Tlaib, whose parents immigrated here a few decades ago, now represents that district and regularly votes for the same policies that have destroyed it. How could you reasonably expect otherwise? I think I mentioned this in the Russia-Ukraine video, and those stats I retweeted earlier about Russia versus America reminded me of it again, but I think about this pretty much every day. I don't remember what those stats are. How when that conflict popped off last year, we had sizable demonstrations of Ukrainian immigrants in downtown Detroit begging for American money and lives to be sent to assist in their ethnic conflict. These people have no concept of the streets that they're marching down, that within my grandparents' lifetime we had arguably the highest standard of living on earth. Now they walk through the ruins of a once great city, the Paris of the Midwest, and demand the opportunity to pick at its bones. Obviously, there are many examples of people who can't necessarily trace their ancestry back to the founding, who are more American than those who can get pretty close to it, which is why I said that I don't claim to know where the line is or what the solution is. This is not about some petty lunch table club that we're not letting people join or something. It is simply a reminder of what every serious society has always viewed as self-evident. I somewhat appreciate the well-meaning sentiment from those who believe that anybody can be American by simply subscribing to a vague definition of our values, but that blank slate derivative idea is why our country has no borders or identity anymore, and I would urge you to read what the Founding Fathers prescribed for immigration policy. Again, I wasn't saying like, okay, patriots, we need to deport all. I wasn't even calling for mass deportation yet. You radicalized me. You did this to me. I was simply saying, hey, let's talk about it. I don't know where the line is. I wasn't saying, here's a line. Everybody on this side of it has to go back. I wasn't saying that. I was literally just saying, hey, clearly this isn't working. Let's talk about it. Real patriots, remember, let's talk about it. So it blows up. Everybody's mad at me all the time. Another day ending in Y. And Vivek ends up responding, being American isn't about whether you can, quote, trace your ancestry on this land. It's about whether you're committed to our nation and its core ideals. The problem I see is too many people who can trace their ancestry don't actually give a damn about the nation. This guy is wrong. There are graphs that prove what I am saying is true, that if you look at different ethnicities which have immigrated to this country, the more likely they are to vote conservative is highly correlated with how many generations they've been in the country for, with a few exceptions. But generally speaking, this is true. Again, we make policy based on tendency. Let me cook. So he says, this is shockingly similar to the argument that just because your ancestors suffered discrimination means that you yourself suffer discrimination today. The best way to defeat identity politics is by abandoning identity politics. I feel your frustrations, but you are dead wrong, my friend. My friend. My friend. My friend, you are dead wrong, my friend. It's a lazy argument that resembles that of the woke left that I've now spent 3 years debunking. Well, I've spent 3 years debunking this, so tit for tat, buddy. Take it from this first generation American. We do have a national identity crisis, but this ain't the solution to it. You've debunked nothing, frankly. So I continue. Time passes. I've shut my mouth. I'm disciplined like that. And he launches his presidential campaign. He's trying to primary President Trump, trying to raise his national profile. And he does a Twitter space or something with Elon Musk where he seems to support an infinite merit-based immigration. I don't remember exactly what he said, but it was something like that, to where then people on Twitter were talking about it and they were like, wait a minute, this guy seems to be pro unlimited merit-based immigration. This is not exactly what Trump's movement is about. This guy was, really good on issue XYZ. I'm surprised by this, whatever. So everybody's like, wait a minute, is this guy like a globalist? So I emerge from the shadows. I emerge from my cave and I say, I've got the receipts. And so I posted a thread. I said, quick thread on Vivek and immigration. Of course, Vivek Ramaswamy supports continued mass immigration. I found this out in January when he joined in on the masses pearl clutching because I have an accurate comprehension of national identity. While he's very good on other issues and is an extremely gifted politician, this issue is actually the most important. And his answer to it is just a repackaged, fresher, and more energized version of what we've all been trying for the last several decades to no avail. So I post my original tweet thread, and then under that, I post all of his replies to it, like the receipts. I said, merit-based immigration is a ridiculous fallacy. Perhaps we could have merit-based immigration if we weren't systematically impeding intelligent and ambitious Americans from occupying these positions, all in the name of diversity, which is voted for almost universally by these new Americans, mind you. How absurdly dishonest it is to tell the people who built the modern world that they will suffocate without the help of tens of millions of people from third world countries. If you think that you need merit-based populations to sustain your economy, know that statistically they will vote to destroy your economy and your country within your lifetime. We've got plenty of Americans here starving for opportunity, but they're told from infancy that they must yield to the vibrant, enriching cultures because of some vague obligation rooted in past injustice. You cannot simultaneously believe in American exceptionalism and mass immigration. If you think that we need millions of people from other countries, then we are not actually exceptional. We are America because of our people, not because of a handful of good ideas or whatever. I said this earlier, in just the last century or so, China has survived world wars, communist genocides, famines, etc. It still looks like China. My country doesn't even look the same as it did when my dad was growing up. I don't care about my GDP, I care about my country. So I post that, and the thread does pretty well, but what was really important was that I had the receipts. And so all of these big right-wing Twitter accounts took those receipts, took those screenshots, and they were posting about it. So between all of these accounts and between all of the tweets that went out, I mean, we're talking like millions and millions and millions of views about Ramaswamy and about his statements on this issue prior, again, to his declaration of his presidential campaign. And so he was forced to come out and make a statement. But before that, I took my victory lap. I said, I bided my time with Vivek, but have ultimately won. I sat on our exchange for 6 months and waited for the news cycle to catch wind of his globalism before resurfacing it. Now many people far more influential and powerful than myself have the evidence and will never forget it, nor will they let Americans forget it either. I saw him this is a true story. I saw him give a speech last winter at a certain political conference about restoring American values and identity, which I knew just meant open borders, civic nationalism 2.0. Then later in the evening, I was asked to give an impromptu speech at an adjacent event during which I denigrated that idea and the conference itself for entertaining it. And then I got into a little bit of trouble, but it's okay. We're not naming names. We're here to make friends. Glad that everybody's on the same page now, except for a few people with the immigration issue. No hard feelings. So anyway, he was forced to come out and respond because of the storm that we caused for him on Twitter. The storm is coming. So he says, I'm an American nationalist. This country isn't just an economic zone, but it's not defined by ethnicity either. We're not bound by the blood in our veins. We're bound by the ideals that our founders spilled blood to preserve. They wrote them out, and we fought a revolution, a civil war, and 2 world wars to save them. I refuse to let the woke left or their intellectual cousins on the right browbeat us into thinking otherwise. I'm rooted deep in this country, and I'll stand my ground to the end if I have to. This is a good debate to have in the GOP. Let's smoke it out. Remember earlier how we mentioned George W. Bush's inauguration speech? Literally what he wrote, or what he said in that inauguration speech, probably written by David Frum, I don't know. He said, America's never been united by blood or birth or soil. We're bound by the ideals that move us beyond our backgrounds, lift us above our interests, and teach us what it means to be citizens. Every child must be taught these principles. Every citizen must uphold them. And every immigrant, by embracing these ideals, makes our country more, not less American. Okay, and so yeah, that's repeated by Ramaswamy, where he talks about we're bound by the ideals that our founders spilled blood to preserve bloody. And so again, yeah, it's just totally repackaged, just the same thing over and over again. You put a fresh take on some ideas, some modern iterations of ideas that the GOP has been recirculating for decades, and all of a sudden this guy's like America First 2.0. But then on the issue that really matters, on the issue which spawned America First, immigration, national identity, he's George Bush. He's just George Bush. So I respond. I'm fully a reply guy at this point. I say, really? In our Constitution, what then is meant by the writing at the top of the document stating its purpose is intended for and dedicated to, quote, ourselves and our posterity? You speak of the Revolution. What did John Dickinson, a delegate to the Constitutional Convention known colloquially as, quote, the penman of the Revolution, for how effective his writings in favor of independence were, mean when he wrote in his Fabius letters highlighting his optimism for the future of the new nation on account of its historically unique unity? Quote, where was there ever a confederacy of republics united as these states are, in which the people were so drawn together by religion, blood, language, manners, and customs? What did John Jay mean in the Federalist Papers when he regarded as such a blessing, quote, this one connected country to one united people, a people descended from the same ancestors, speaking the same language, professing the same religion, attached to the same principles of government, very similar in their manners and customs? What did Alexander Hamilton mean when he wrote that, quote, the influx of foreigners must therefore tend to change and corrupt the national spirit, to complicate and confound public opinion, to introduce foreign propensities? If the, quote, ideals of the founders are most accurately articulated and condensed in our Constitution, then why do the most influential men in its authoring all disagree completely with your interpretation of what they actually sacrificed for? You're smart enough to know that what you're arguing would have been literally laughed at until just a few decades ago. So then what is the motive behind distorting our history and our sovereignty? For being dead wrong, I'm going to be honest, I've got a case. I've got a pretty compelling case, and no one's ever actually disputed that. They only pick on me and lie about me and call me names. Let's smoke it out. Let's have the debate. We're smoking it out. We're having the debate, and it seems like you haven't actually moved at all in 2 years on your position. And if anything, you've only further embedded yourself in the ascendant nationalist cause, only to just dig your heels in on your initial position. If I were a cynic, I would say that's subversive. Hey, why do you think it's yours? It's actually ours. It's everybody's. Yeah, me when I want to take something that isn't mine. It's not ours. It's not the birthright of the men whose ancestors tamed a continent. Damn, that's crazy, because the first words of our Constitution are literally declaring that the nation is in fact our birthright. Not you denying my ancient birthright. Denying my ancient birthright is crazy. Maybe we deserve it. The point of all this being, look, I agree with a lot of what he says, but he needs to improve his position on immigration. It's simple as that. Like, I appreciate what he does insofar as he makes the rest of the GOP look like a bunch of corrupt idiots, which they are, but we have to have a higher bar for people if we're going to throw our weight behind them. It's actually very simple, too. Like, what is your view of American identity? Will you at least break free from this Washington orthodoxy on immigration, on American identity, like the public has been begging for literally decades now? Like, if you won't do that, then I don't really care if you just want to do small government, but with better energy, fresh talking points. You want to do fiscal responsibility, anti-government bloat, but with like updated, like you can have all the right positions, but if you don't get immigration right, which affects every other thing, like it literally doesn't matter. It's not even going to be the same country. It's going to look like something else. It's going to look like a third world country to the extent that it doesn't already, because of this one issue, because of immigration, the most important issue. And this goes for everybody, because if you're doing all that, putting in all that work, but it's not for Americans, it's not in service of putting Americans first, who's it for? Why should I care? Why should I support that? Immigration and national identity. Donald Trump put that on the menu in 2015. It's staying there. It's not going away until it's fixed, no matter how they try to defang it, no matter how they try to put it back in the box. And like we said, you can't not have this debate. You can't de-escalate this now that it's on the table, because this is the progression of everything that's been happening. It's our entire self-concept as a nation. And there are essentially two ways of viewing national identity. It's like, you chuck a volleyball into an empty court, no matter where it lands, like it's going to land on one side of the net or the other. You can have your own little nuanced opinion on this. That's great. Good for you. We're so happy about that. But at the end of the day, it does fall into one of these two categories, which are, you either think that national identity is something that can be reduced to a set of terms and conditions, which literally anyone can read or have translated, and then all you have to do is just check the box. Boom, that's a nation. You can sustain that. You don't even read the terms and conditions for your computer. That's a computer. Like, imagine if they were actually telling you you had to change the way you behave and view the world and all that. Like, there's no enforcement. It's just your word. Truth, honor, we find out that these are actually not universal virtues. We learn the hard way. The point being, yeah, as long as you show up, you fill out the form, answer some questions about checks and balances, the Electoral College, you're just as American as anyone else here. That's ridiculous. That is a ridiculous proposition. Nobody actually believes that, and nobody pretended to even believe that until just a few decades ago. It's like Soviet tier propaganda, just like repeated just nonsense that no one actually believes, and even the people saying it don't believe it because it's so obviously ridiculous. So you can think that, or you can think it's actually much deeper than that. It's something much deeper within us. It's our civilization. It's an outgrowth of centuries and centuries of our history. But again, the reason people don't like that is because it steps on toes. It draws lines. It hurts some feelings. And at some point, we should do a separate What is American Identity video, because I'm not trying to say that, oh, if you don't have anyone in your family who came over on the Mayflower, then you're not an American. That's not the point. But the point is that clearly whatever we've been doing has not been working, and it's actually only getting worse. And it's like I said in those tweets, I'm not claiming to know where the line is. I am simply pointing out the fact that this country is now unrecognizable to even my parents' generation, and that is a problem. And if you don't see why that's a problem, maybe you're a part of it. You have to embrace like full circle boomerism. You have to feel it in your blood, in your heart, in your skin. You have to wear it on your face that no one who loves America would ever vote Democrat. These people vote overwhelmingly Democrat. Do the math. And don't tell me it's because, Republicans are tough on immigration. That's been happening for all of 5 minutes. Prior to that, there was no serious opposition. In fact, George Bush's relative success with Hispanics was advertised as proof that surely we needed to stop talking about immigration as a whole. But then, of course, Donald Trump beats his margins running on a platform of mass deportations. So do the math. The civic nationalist, he pretends he cares about law. Oh, sorry. Oh, it's the law. They're American. What if we simply change the law? It's not like you'd be okay with that. If we change the law, no, you'd throw a fit. Well, they're American. They get to be American. Okay. So the whole thing is just dishonest. It's a cope to say that America is bound by ideals. And that's what makes you an American, believing in ideas. Yet they've never once advocated, you notice, for stripping citizenship away from people who are insufficiently committed to those ideas. Because it's not actually serious. It's just a response to buy themselves time while the importation continues. Plus, if that did happen, it would tend to align with us anyway. I always thought that would be a good Stone Toss comic. Like, you've got all these soldiers and they're deporting all of these people who look like they're from the third world. And then some guy is like, hey, I thought we said we're only deporting people who don't subscribe to our ideals. And then the soldier's like, we are. But remember, this guy's big pitch, his 2024 platform, was Unleashing America First 2.0, which in a primary campaign against Donald Trump means that whatever vector Trump established for the American right wasn't quite getting it, wasn't quite sufficiently pro-America. So now I have to come and I have to take the torch. But it turns out that we're just going back to George Bush era civic nationalism, but with the modern critiques of the excesses of the left, maybe some critiques of foreign involvement in wars. Hey, don't kill him. We got to bring him over here. What are you doing? Don't kill him. We need those people. Who are you going to pay for without him? So it's just insulting at the end of the day. That's what it is. I'm tired of pretending it's not insulting. It's not even a legitimate argument or something other than subversive and disingenuous and harmful. That's what it is. Here's the situation. Brass tacks. You want to know why I care so deeply about this in particular and why I will never compromise on it? I have ancestors that fought in the American Revolution against the British. I have ancestors who fought on each side of the American Civil War. My ancestors established, as we discussed, what was once one of the greatest cities in America. They spilled blood to preserve what is their ancient right as Englishmen for their posterity. It's written among the first words of our Constitution, that word, posterity. What does that mean? As a member of that posterity, I take that very seriously. It's an insult to be told what an American is supposed to be by a first-generation resident of my country, which ironically, these people would know if they were actually Western. We consider that to be dreadfully impolite. It's as though someone came into your house as your father's on his deathbed and told you, I actually have just as much of a right to his estate as you do. Because I worked with the guy. I laughed at his joke one time at the company banquet. I enjoyed being around him, so it's mine too. You may love this country, you may enjoy it, but it's my inheritance, and that is the difference. And funny enough, Ramaswamy supported the estate tax. He wanted to raise it significantly to something like 60%. You can kind of see where things are coming from. You kind of start to piece things together, like your country, your father's nest egg, taken from you, distributed to the rest of the world. So yeah, you might have some good things to say about what's going on in the country, government bloat, inefficiency, the excesses of leftism. The woke are sure annoying, right? But you're also calling for the dissolution of whatever is left of the people who founded this country, their political power, their wealth, their way of life, through your immigration policies. So because of that, I wouldn't say you're a friend of the American cause. I wouldn't say you want to put America first, because you can only put America first by carrying the torch, by protecting it. The founding fathers built this country for themselves and for their posterity, as it says in the Constitution for the 100th time. Write that down on the blackboard. It's ridiculous to think that any nation or civilization in the world would subscribe to this idea that anyone can show up, pass a test, and suddenly you have equal claim to this country as do the descendants of its founders. And no other country does but ours. And that's a problem. That's a bad idea. But I'm told, well, America's an idea, and that's what makes America America in the first place. Are we sure? If we were founded by the Portuguese, perhaps we'd look more like Brazil to the extent that we currently don't. If we were founded by the French, perhaps we'd look more like Canada. But we weren't. We were founded by a particular, specific group of people who came from Northwestern Europe, from a part of the world that is approximately the size of Florida. And that matters, because when people come from that part of the world and they travel to establish a new society, whether that be in America, England, Australia, they all kind of look the same. They may speak a bit differently, they may have different cultural eccentricities, but the general day-to-day is very similar. But when you have different people establishing societies, they can use our blueprints, and they still come up looking a little bit different. Look at Liberia. The great thing about America being an idea is that anyone can pretty much copy us. Damn it! Oh, no, they're going to take our ideas. Why did we give that to them? And they did. I mean, they're hugely influential ideas. You may not know this. Liberia, China, Ethiopia, Nigeria, Bangladesh, Peru, Zimbabwe all took inspiration from our Constitution in creating their equivalent. Do any of those places look like America? Rhodesia didn't take as much inspiration from the American Constitution as its successor state, Zimbabwe, did. Tell me, which looks more American to you? The point being, people are not just interchangeable economic units. They're not just workers. They're people. Ironically, I recognize humanity more than the people who hate me for saying this, because by its nature, their argument reduces humanity to like Legos or a Mad Lib or something. But because I'm right, you notice that when these immigrants come up, they set up neighborhoods, they set up communities in our country. Funny enough, they look exactly like the countries from which they came. And here I thought it would be white picket fences and apple pie. But hey, I'm glad Zimbabwe looks more American. You know, when they were Rhodesia, that was a very un-American and therefore undesirable place to live, doomed for failure. But now that they're Zimbabwe and they've become more enlightened after taking inspiration from our Constitution, I would, of course, be happy to move there in a second. And I think I speak for almost all of us in saying that. So yeah, the point being, it is incredibly disrespectful to just write off everything, the miracle that this country is, simply because those people aren't around anymore. My ancestors did not do these things in a vacuum. You know, it's a lot easier to just like sit around and live in squalor than to do these things for your posterity, for future generations. Would they have decided to freeze at Valley Forge to create a nation for other people's children? And not only who reject their ideas, just like, oh, well, no thanks, we'll try something else. Who outright hate their ideas, who hate their faith. No, they would not have done that. So yeah, it becomes very tribal very quickly. People have tried to ruin my life over this issue because when I provide an accurate representation of what America is, what it was intended to be, they don't respect that and say, oh, okay, well, agree to disagree. No, instead, very quickly, the knives come out and they try to ruin my life. And what did I do? What was my transgression? What crime for holding a normal opinion? The opinion that anyone in this country would have had until 5 seconds ago, the opinion that everybody in the world has today, except for in my country. But these people love America. Well, they're more patriotic than a lot of the people you say are real Americans. Okay, first of all, again, if they loved America, generally, they would not express that politically by voting for the party which seeks to destroy America in its past, current, and future forms. It's that simple. And they overwhelmingly do vote for that and support that. Moreover, they love it in the sense that you would like love a lottery ticket that gave you a bunch of stuff you otherwise wouldn't have had. Like, yeah, who wouldn't? Where are you, though, on the day after the jackpot hits and it wasn't you? Where are you on the low payout scratch off? The real gambling man's pick, the true love of the game, right? If America stopped giving them free money and opportunities and a million other things at the expense of its own people, you really think that they would stick around? You think that they'd really still just love America? I guess that would really test that love you speak of, wouldn't it? Also, more patriotic. Have you ever heard the etymology behind patriotism, like the origins of the word? It comes from the Greek word, which I will totally mispronounce because I don't speak to people in real life. I just read things. But the word is patriotes. Patriots, it means fellow countryman or lineage member. And the root of that word, patris, literally means fatherland. Again, referencing that lineage, that connection to the land of your ancestors. So, no, you do not love America if you wish to flood it with immigrants, implying that Americans by themselves are insufficient. But you say this, right? And then they're like, this is why immigrants vote Democrat. It's your fault. Wow. Ethnic minorities voting Democrat for tribal reasons? You're telling me this now for the first time. Everybody in politics, every single person, it's like the thing, you know, we're all chilling. Wow, isn't this fun? Wow, we're all in the same camp. Wow, we're all playing our parts. Wow, we're all on the same side. And you say one thing and the blood jumps. They all start freaking out. It reveals the internalized feminism, the internalized anti-white sentiment, everything. It just happens every single time. It smokes out the creature within. Nation, same thing, literally means people. America First 2.0, by the way. And as we mentioned, we are going to do a myth of merit-based immigration video next because all of that nonsense, which is used to justify the erosion of our civilization, we'll debase ourselves, we'll debunk that, so look out for that. But the Greeks too, obviously, you know, the founding fathers would agree with what we're saying, but we can take it back even further. We can take it back to the roots of Western civilization. We can look at the Greeks who influenced all of European civilization. You know, the Roman understanding of citizenship was much more like post-1965 America. The Greeks were a lot more based with citizenship. They were like, yeah, you know, you can come, you can live here, you can do business here, but you're not a citizen. That doesn't make you a citizen. And so, of course, more broadly speaking, monarchs, right? They would have foreign guards, famously, the Swiss guards protecting the French king. They have no rationale to overthrow. No, they're dependent upon the king, what the king affords to them at the expense of his people. It's not like they could run France. So sovereigns, heads of state, these guys are always worried about having popular generals, military officials who are loyal to the people because they could overthrow them and then rule. And so these people throughout history aren't necessarily malicious. It's not to say that their power is universally illegitimate or bad. These monarchs, these sovereigns, which is opposite to ours, which is in fact uniquely bad. Our rulers suck and they hate us. It's just to say that tyrants like foreign militaries and foreign populations. They use them to maintain power. Anyone will tell you this, unless of course they're a part of the system which is overseen by these people. You may have to find your information elsewhere in that case, like here, because I love you. And because I love you, I want you to be sovereign in your own country again. I want you to have what your ancestors wanted for you. I want you to enjoy the fruits of their sacrifices. I want you to be liberated from being a passenger to your own destiny. And we can achieve all of these things by simply rejecting the open society libtard framework, which has held us hostage for decades. Okay, so we do that, and then we restore the sovereignty of the American nation. Okay, so we do that, and then you buy my merch at johndoyleshop.com on January 20th. Okay, break. Hey guys, if you like this video, leave it a thumbs up by clicking the thumbs up button. It's an intuitive UI. And then you want to leave a comment with your thoughts, either telling me that you hate me or telling me that you love me. There is no middle position. If you arrive at a middle position, you've not comprehended the video in its entirety. And I would not want you to embarrass yourself publicly by trying to demonstrate insufficient comprehension. So you have to simply rewatch the video again from start to finish and then decide which side of the net you land on, whether you completely hate me or completely love me. And then from there, who knows? Oh, the places we go. Maybe you kill me. Maybe you come give me a $5 bill. I guess we'll see, right? I'm assuming I'll know when I encounter you. And then you want to subscribe to the channel. Again, I wouldn't insult your intelligence by trying to explain why. Obviously, that's important, just like obviously. Turning on notifications is important, and sharing the video with a friend. Share a video with your favorite Anglo-Saxon friend, your favorite Indian friend, your favorite... I have viewers in every country. We love you. We want most of you to stay where you are, but we love you. We love everybody. That's the point, but sometimes fences make good neighbors. Sometimes, not every time, but sometimes. I know I'm going to get flack because I think I called myself an Anglo-Saxon at some point in that video, and people are going to be like, Doyle calls himself an Anglo-Saxon. I'm very smart. No, you idiot. I am liberated from my surname. Obviously, I wear the name proudly. A lot of great men in my family. However, I did one of those DNA tests, which I know, they're going to sell the DNA to the Chi-Coms and make a virus that kills you. What a way to go. But I found out, actually, I am 49% Anglo-Saxon, I think I have one of the most American DNA combinations possible in terms of being a mutt. Hold on. I'll pull it up for you. So I'm 49% English and Northwestern European, 23% Germanic European, only 16% Irish, 7% French, 4% Scottish, and 1% Indigenous American. One of my ancestors, I guess, had a little bit of a misfire there, and the tribal women, they see the Anglo-Saxon, they can't help it. They, throw themselves at their conquerors. It is what it is. What are you going to do? So yes, we are Anglo-Saxon, and we are enjoying. So thank you so much for watching. May God bless you. May God bless America.